Hello and welcome to the show. No, you have not accidentally stepped into a parallel universe. I do indeed have a car here specifically designed for drifting. This S13 Nissan Silvia is really rather good at getting sideways. Of course, not a car built by me, as I do not know much about these sort of things. Instead, I went to Mr. Aero HD for a car. And, well, he knows a thing or two about making vehicles go sideways in Forza 6. And, well, really a testament to the car. If I can get it sliding around this well, yeah, this is a very, very good car for going drifting with, because it is just so effortless almost, throwing it through these corners. A really rather incredible vehicle. However, naturally, that is not quite why we are here. I was wondering, what would happen if I took a car specifically designed for drifting and take it as far outside of its comfort zone as I could, take it racing, do various other stuff that it really shouldn't be doing, and see how it fares. After all, this has got some pretty decent stats for an A-class car, 450 horsepower, 400 torque, and weighs just a smidge over 2,200 pounds. They're not bad stats for an A-class vehicle indeed, so I was wondering how it would fare elsewhere. Naturally, I figured the best place to start would be with some hot lapping, and we headed to the Virginia International Raceway, partly because it's a track that I didn't have a leaderboard time set on, with a fast car, so we could see where this Silvia would go, and also because it is a pretty challenging circuit, this one. Plenty of medium and high-speed corners, with a couple of nasty bugger turns thrown in for good measure. This one coming up in particular, trying to get the car through here. That's a very, very tight corner after a lot of fast sections, so an interesting test track, that much is for sure. Now, the main problem you are expecting me to say with this car would be oversteer, and you would be completely wrong. The actual biggest problem, although at this particular stage of the track it isn't quite a thing because it's pretty much flat out, is the brakes. This car is of course designed to be going sideways, and not so much the heavy braking into some of the tighter sections. It doesn't have race tyres. I believe it has sport tyres, and I don't think it has upgraded brakes at all. The PI was spent elsewhere in the vehicle, so getting this car slowed down was a real pain. You've just got to brake a lot earlier than you are really wanting to with the car. Couple that with the fact that, as I mentioned before, big power to weight ratio, very fast accelerating car, yeah, getting it slowed down is a tad on the scary side. And oversteer isn't a thing at all. In fact, it is understeer that is a bigger problem. Once you've got this car sliding, yes, it carries that slide very, very well. It holds that slide and it is perfectly happy to stay sideways for a large amount of time. But when you haven't got the car sliding about, the front end doesn't actually turn into a corner very well. Again, it's not designed for doing that. I know what it's designed for, but yeah, it's the bigger struggle is trying to get the front end of the car turned in to these corners. It was actually quite entertaining, though, to drive this car. Once you've got the hang of the slightly different driving style that you have to have with it, I was surprised with just how quick and just how hard you could push this car trying to drive it, well, like a race vehicle. Now, on the leaderboard, yes, I didn't set a earth-shattering time. I was 10 seconds down from the very fastest of vehicles. Admittedly, my 794th place here, perhaps a little skewed with this being a DLC track that everyone might not have, but still, considering that is a car woefully unsuited to that sort of thing, I didn't think it had fared too badly. Now, the next of the challenges, Autocross. Now, I love Autocross. I am a massive fan, and I am vastly experienced with this track from the Autocross car builds that I do. However, this vehicle is completely wrong, essentially, for tackling this. We've got poor brakes. The brakes were always going to be a struggle. We don't have the race tyres, and I like my cars to be very, very planted. I don't want a car moving around when I try to get on the power from low speed, because that is going to cost me time, and of course this vehicle wants to be moving around. And while I did say yes, the understeer at Virginia was a bigger problem, here we have understeer when we come to the faster bits, so we have to sort of lift or go on the brakes even in some places. And then when you try and put the power down out of the slower corners, you can't just jump on the throttle like you can with a lot of vehicles that I am used to taking around here, because of course as soon as you go near the throttle through these very, very slow speed section, this is where the car is just wanting to go sideways. So you've got to be very patient with the car. You've got to be I don't know what's going on with the replay camera, why it suddenly changed, and now wants to see a tyre bundle there, but there we go. You've got to be very patient, and if the car does start going sideways, that's when you're in trouble, because it really does want to keep going sideways. You saw there with that little brush on the curb, I thought I was in a lot of trouble at that stage. I managed to bring it all back together again. Again, there were more sliding going on. But once more, I was quite surprised with just how dry. I thought this was going to be a lot more of an animal, essentially, to keep under control going through a course like this one. And it really wasn't. You can see that it's not happy. You can see the way the car is kind of bouncing across the road, that it's not really happy with what I am asking it to do. It does look a little bit odd in some ways when you're driving it normally. However, it was managing it, and I was managing to carry, again, more speed than I was expecting, and on this run we saw no really big scary sideways moment, little bits, but nothing too massive. Of course, yeah, I have a fast time on the leaderboard here with the Porsche, but the actual lap time from the vehicle was a 2:12.571, which would put it into 182nd on the leaderboard. In terms of my leaderboard with the cars that I've built, it beats the front-wheel drive Focus RS, the Range Rover Sport SVR, does lose out to the classic Mercedes and the Jaguar XJS. So, with some sort of time trialling challenges done, it was off to some public lobbies, which are always scary at the best of times, with my drift car to see how it would fare racing here. And one race, Lime Rock, we go around the outside of an S2000 at the final corner. Wasn't quite expecting that manoeuvre to come off, but I could make it stick, and this was the thing, the car wasn't going sideways when I didn't want it to. Yes, if I throw the car about, I could get it sliding all over the place, but if you didn't want it to, if you actually did try to drive it sensibly, it wasn't going to do anything unpredictable. Of course, yes, it's never going to compete with an Alfa Romeo 33 that was up ahead, and I was struggling. Lime Rock is about the worst track imaginable, really, for this car. It's a lot of medium-speed corners, and the understeer in the Silvia does struggle. It does struggle to get turned through some of these sections. The S2000 is again coming under trouble. Once more, I'm going to go around the outside of the Honda. Admittedly, I think it got a little bit caught on the grass that time out. But yeah, I could go round the outside of other vehicles, and the thing is, when we did get to a straight, I had so much straight line speed compared to the cars I was racing against. Yes, you know, there are faster vehicles, but it was really holding its own and managing to out-accelerate quite a lot of cars, all while being relatively controllable. You didn't like the slower speed section through here. The S2000 is now keen to get past the Dodge as well. Actually, Honda does a pretty good overtake on the Dodge, and once more I am being followed by the grinning mouth of that Honda, this time not going out on the grass, but making the most of my acceleration once more to get my car clear. And it held its own in battles. Of course, I did win a couple of these public lobbies. That was more to do with the fact that, well, they are out to carnage, and if you happen to start at the front and run away from everybody, you're pretty much set anyway. So, yeah, they were perhaps less spectacular than these actual wheel-to-wheel battles that I did have going on, and Audi is all over the place. I was fighting with a 360 Challenge. Now, I love the 360 Challenge. It is a glorious car, and it's a fantastically good handling car in this game. As the Ferrari was trying to fight with the Audi, I just get a fantastic run onto this back straight, a sweep round the outside of two cars. I don't even find myself going around the outside of everything, and I had a bloody drift car, but it was working amazingly. I really didn't expect half of the moves that I was able to pull off to actually be working, but you could do it if you got things right with this car. It could carry a lot of speed. Now, I did have to beware. Again, we're coming towards a twistier section of the track, and the Ferrari was mega fast through here, and I knew I simply can't carry the speed of the 360 Challenge. I knew he was going to dive up the inside there as well. I can't brake either, comparatively to that car. We're going to go into this last section side by side. Now, I knew where I was strong. I tried to cut back to the inside on the run onto the start-finish straight. I actually got a bit of a slide going on, lost some time, almost lost place to the Caterham, would immediately, though, start pulling on the cars around me and come soaring past the 360 just in time to keep the position, a tenth of a second between us in that particular race. We'd then go to Road Atlanta. Now, this track and Indianapolis certainly did suit the Silvia a little bit more. We didn't quite have the same slow speed and medium speed corners for the car to struggle through. We had a nice long straight for the vehicle to make up positions. Through turn 1, I'm stuck on the outside and then have to kind of go through the middle and out accelerate just about everything, out accelerating the muscle cars on the run up the hill, and then we're going around the outside again, around the outside of the CTSV and the 360 Challenge at the top of the hill there. I thought that was going to end in disaster. Normally going too wide at the top of the hill is scary, especially in public lobbies. We're going 3 wide with me on the outside with a drift car shouldn't work, but it does. Again, the car was being so very well behaved, sneaking up on a Mustang. Now, the Mustang did have more straight line speed than me, did struggle a little bit to get it stopped. I'm again spotting that opportunity, get to the inside, force the Ford to have to go the long way round. Give him space though, don't want to put the car out onto the grass, and the Mustang does hold it on that wider line, and then the Ford's power will come in as we come down this main straight. Yeah, I don't quite have the speeds to compete with the Mustang, but I wasn't that far back, and of course we were considerably quicker than the cars ahead. It was my turn though to get a little bit caught out by the brakes. I just about get it slowed down, give a little bit of a brush to the hold and lift off the throttle going through there. Don't want to gain advantage from that one. It's trying to get it all slowed down on that very first lap when you're not quite sure where the braking zones are was a tad on the scary side. Mustang ended up out wide in the tyre bundle. I had to kind of panic and try and yank my car away from ending up over that way, so we see a little bit of a slide going on. But once more, if you didn't do anything stupid to upset the car, you didn't actually get in too much trouble. And amazingly, as we came towards the end of this race, I was catching a BAC mono. Yes, this is not a track that is well suited to the mono because of the long straights, but it does make up tremendous time, certainly through this slower section here. The Drift Silvia was catching a BAC mono around a track. That is the sort of speed that this car was capable of. I was absolutely pushing it on this final lap. You can see it wiggling about on the limits of the grip, but yeah, catching a BAC mono is rather impressive. Finally, though, not just content with racing the car against random public lobbies, we would set up a track full of these Drift Silvias. They're all using exactly the same tune, and we're going to see how they would fare against one another. Would they create some exciting close racing as someone goes exploring the gravel trap? The curbs were horrible to these cars. You really didn't want to mess around with the curbs. It's 3 wide at turn 2. Immediately with 3 wide through the second corner, and everyone has just about survived that one okay with 2 wide through the next turn. Not quite everyone survived that one so well. I was a lot further back in the pack. It very much felt like the start of a NASCAR race where you're just going sort of 2 wide for the entire opening lap. Further back, it's just all you could see was cars 2 wide up ahead for the first few corners. It was really rather incredible. And again, if I hadn't told you these were drift cars, you probably wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it to look at them necessarily because, well, they weren't going sideways. We weren't having to fight the car. We weren't struggling with constant oversteer. I say we weren't having to fight the car. The main thing we were having to fight were brakes just not really getting it stopped. You weren't seeing these cars going massively sideways absolutely everywhere. We were driving them just like a normal car, really. This group of 3 fighting over the lead, although the camo car just managing to start pull a little bit of a gap on the vehicles behind. And we did see this split up quite quickly in this race. We had the lead group of 3, and behind them another group of 3, and then behind that I think I was in the middle of a slightly bigger, angrier pack. But yeah, through no point in this race did it actually look like it was a race containing drift cars. Only when things went a little bit wrong. That was when it kind of gave it away. You could race them incredibly normally without any problem whatsoever. The blue car goes for a big dive up the inside, tries to get it stopped. He just about keep control of it. Then ends up with a wheel on the grass and would lose a couple of positions. It's when it goes that little bit wrong is, when you kind of have to panic and try and fight the car a little bit, as the blue vehicle here found out. A wheel on the grass is not a good idea. A wheel on the curb is an even worse idea. There are a couple of the nastier ones here, because it'll just throw the car sideways. And as I mentioned, once it starts going sideways, that is all that it absolutely wants to do. But when it's not going sideways, yeah, it's perfectly happy to be driven normally. And yeah, they were not bad cars to drive. As I said, it took a little bit of getting used to because of the understeer and the slight lack of brakes. Once you got the hang of that, although this is where we saw so many cars going off. It was getting the braking right into that very, very quick corner. Once you had kind of learned it, I mean, this was still in the relatively early laps, you could drive them like a normal A-Class car in many respects. But yeah, just when you've pushed it that little bit too hard, we see the black and white car here going a big slide out of the final corner. They were, of course, very easy to control. When it did start sliding, you lost a heap of time. You can see the amount of time lost there from a relatively small slide. And it was this midfield group that were having the most exciting of the races. I think I was in about 5th. I was just ahead of this group, kind of wandering around on my own for most of it. The car ahead has a wheel on the grass. That is not a good thing for when it comes to turning into the final corner. You do that with a normal car and you'll often end up in trouble. But yeah, do it with one of these, you'll have a massive slide and lose a heap of time. But again, you can keep it under control. The blue car has a big dive up the inside of turn 1. Can't quite get it stopped. He's across the curves, and then we see the danger of the curves. Massive twitch. Does an incredible job of keeping that under control, only losing one position in all of that. It is right on the bumper of the pink car ahead. Yeah, it's a scary curb to hit. You hit it at such speed with these, and because they are so happy to be going sideways when they start, you can often have some very, very violent offs there. But it was recoverable, and then, you know, we're back to having a 4-car battle. This group did sort of change positions fairly frequently. A couple of cars would make mistakes and sort of drop back through the field, or a car would break away at the front and just start making a bit of a gap. We did see a fairly large sort of split in lap times throughout this. The white vehicle thinks about going around the outside. He has a wiser decision, cut back to the inside on the exit, get that much better exit towards the next corner, get the pass done before you even get there. That is a very, very good overtake. The black car is now pushing it, trying to keep up or regain a position. When you overdrive the cars, that is when you end up in a little bit of trouble. You see the two vehicles in the background going very, very sideways. You can't afford to overdrive them, but provided you're not doing that, yeah, you can have a relatively easy time, much as this camoed Silvia would have actually pulled out a huge lead. None of us could really do much to keep up with this car. If you got the hang of it, you could run some pretty decent lap times, and yeah, not all of us quite got the hang of it as well. There were some mighty fast lap times going on in this. Not the greatest of racing. It was quite spread out, in all honesty. There's a bit too much of a variation almost in lap times to get some of the best racing that we've ever had, but still, when there were two cars close on track, it was rather good fun. This white Silvia, a little bit slow, heading down towards the final turn. Car behind was thinking about trying to get an overtake done, a pass done on the outside of the last turn, though. Is a tough place to try that, let alone with very slidey cars, and he couldn't do it, would have to settle for the position. So, yeah. There we go. Drift cars, turns out, actually really isn't that bad to go racing. Can be fairly uneventful if you go hot lapping with it. Can survive an autocross course. Yes, it isn't amazingly blisteringly fast at an autocross course. However, considering it is so wrong, essentially, for what you want in an autocross car, to still be that drivable and to be able to push it pretty damn hard is certainly very impressive. I really did expect it to be a lot more of a handful when you're trying to race it normally, but that simply wasn't the case. It was competitive in a lot of the public lobbies that I ended up in. Yes, it's going to lose out to some properly tuned race cars. Of course, it's always going to, but it was certainly running mid-pack, relatively high mid-pack, in fact, and it did get a few wins even, which, again, car completely and utterly unsuited, and it was doing all of that, and they were quite good fun to go racing with, if a little bit spread out. But, yeah, I'm thoroughly impressed with just how well it fared so far outside of its comfort zone. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. A big thank you to Mr. Aero HD for building this car for me. As I said, it is certainly one hell of a vehicle. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, everyone. And until next time, goodbye.